Good afternoon and welcome to another episode of Mr. Long Island's Search for Truth and Beauty. My name is Michael Watt, aka Mr. Long Island, and our guest this week is Mike Davidziak. I've practiced all week, thank you, from the Rollstone Foundation, and we're going to learn more about what that is in a moment. But the premise of the Mr. Long Island Search for Truth and Beauty is we discuss issues that need to be discussed on Long Island, which is the truth, and the beauty of Long Island. There's so many great things about Long Island that we really don't give enough heed to. It's a tremendous place to live, work, and raise a family. So what we like to do with this show is highlight things that make Long Island so special. And in this case, Michael, the Rollstone Foundation is actually a little bit of both. You provide a tremendous service, which again we'll get into, but it also highlights just how many well-meaning, caring people there are in the region. And I know that you've been involved in a number of philanthropic efforts, so we'll get into that in a little bit. But first, each week we discuss a great place to get pizza. And the reason for that is, in all my Long Island-centric activities over the last 2 decades, the one thing I come to realize is every town in Long Island, the one thing it has in common is a great pizza place, or at least one pizza place. And so every town, regardless where it is, North Shore, South Shore, Suffolk County, Nassau County, every town has at least one pizza place, and every Long Islander has a strong opinion about pizza. So one of our quests on Mr. Long Island Search for Truth and Beauty is to compile a really great list of great pizza in Long Island, and we're hoping you can add to it this week.
Well, I'm going to add to it because I think I'm going to give you 3.
Okay.
I live in Bayport.
All right.
And
Bayport's on the South Shore, Central Suffolk-ish?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, just next to between Sayville and Blue Point, give reference points. And when we moved to Bayport, we quickly learned about the Great Bayport Pizza Debate.
The Great Bayport Pizza Debate.
There were 3 pizza parlors. When we moved there were 3 pizza parlors. There was Satellite, there was Tony's, and Fershey's.
Okay.
And you could get a healthy debate in almost any house in Bayport about which one has the best pizza. And they actually all are terrific. We actually are Satellite people.
Okay.
We came down on Satellite as far as our voice in the argument. But you wouldn't get you'd get a great slice of pizza in any one of the 3.
That's fascinating. So now you get guests coming in from out of town. You want to show off Long Island a bit. You want to give them a real good taste of Long Island pizza. You bring them to Satellite.
Happens all the time. I have 12 grandchildren who live in Wyoming, and when they come to visit, and my daughter who grew up on Long Island, and my son-in-law who spent time on Long Island, the first thing they want to do is go get good pizza. Bagels and pizza.
Okay.
First 2 things. Yeah.
That's terrific. So we got 3. We got to add 3 to the list. That's tremendous. All right. So we got that out of the way, and thank you so much for that. And I can't wait to try it. Let's talk about the Rollstone Foundation. You launched in 2006?
2007. Really.
2007.
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, the purpose of the Rollstone Foundation, our mission statement is to aid in the adoption of special needs children.
Okay.
And how we do that is we give grants to people, parents who are willing to adopt special needs children.
Okay.
What we found out is that, well, first of all, there are estimated about 149 million orphans in the world today.
Wow. Okay.
Now, many of those are special needs. So you can almost put them in the unwanted category.
Okay.
They have HIV, they have cerebral palsy, they have various different special needs. And mostly they come from third world countries, many from the sub-Saharan nations, but many from China and South America as well. So basically what we discovered is that there are many what I would call undesirable or unwanted orphans in the world. And what we discovered was that there are these unbelievable people, I can only call them saints, who are willing to adopt special needs children. But the dichotomy that we have found in the adoption world is people with the means to adopt, because an adoption costs somewhere between $20,000 and $30,000.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's not a cheap thing to do. The people who have the means, that kind of money, want a perfectly healthy child.
Right.
You know, and not to put too fine a point on it, a perfectly healthy white child more often than not. The people who are willing to adopt a special needs child often don't have the means. So the Rollstone Foundation was founded to bridge that gap. We decided that if there are these saints in the world who are willing to adopt special needs children, we were going to make it our mission that money wouldn't be the stumbling block.
That's
You know,
very okay.
So money
Right.
wouldn't be the stone that wouldn't be rolled away, basically.
Very interesting. And the stone represents a challenge, or how'd you come up with Rollstone
Well,
Foundation?
I'll tell you, the way we came up with the name Rollstone was, as I said, when my wife Pam Green and I decided to start the Rollstone Foundation, got the idea of it. As my wife likes to say, we were where all great plans are hatched. We were in a bar.
Okay.
So as we were sitting there, we were discussing the idea of starting a charity that helped adopt special needs children. And one of my wife's favorite passages from the Bible is at the end of Mark's Gospel, where the women are, going to visit the tomb at the end of the Gospel, and as they're on their way, they say, "Who will roll away the stone for us?"
Right.
And my wife always uses that as a great story. That can you imagine if they had just said, "Well, the stone's too big. We'll never
Right.
move it, so we won't go."
Right.
And they would have missed out being the first witnesses to the risen Christ.
Right.
So it's such a great story and a great analogy of being able to do things which seem impossible, and going anyway, basically.
And that can be really applied to just about anything in life.
Pretty much. That's
yeah.
right. That's right. If you think something's impossible, it is.
Right.
If you think something cannot be done, it won't be done.
But it seems to me as a society we're getting away from stone rollers.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And this was, this was something that, we saw the need, we decided we're going to do something about it. And believe me, we're doing the easy part. We're raising money and giving it away. I mean,
Right.
honestly, that's the easy part of this. The true saints, the true heart of this story are the parents who adopt special needs children. Somebody who's willing to adopt a cerebral palsy child, for example, that's a lifetime of commitment,
Right.
of care. That's not just, I want a child, because, we weren't able to have children.
Right.
And by the way, we've never had a childless couple adopt.
I was going to ask you
Honestly,
about that.
we've
Right.
never actually had a childless couple adopt. And that kind of makes sense. I don't think most people would want their first child to be a special needs
Right.
child or whatever. But every time we've had, and we've done, so far, we have helped about 70 children be adopted.
Is this on Long Island or across the country?
Oh, no,
or-
no, all over the country.
Okay.
No, all over the country. The foundation is here based on Long Island. The board of the Rollstone Foundation is all people from all walks of life, successful business people from Long Island. But the families are from all over the country. We've adopted it. We've had adoptions in, probably 40 of the 50 states.
So what's the bigger challenge, the fundraising or finding the families willing to make the adoptions?
All the money. That's the money. The money.
Really?
Absolutely. We are inundated with grant requests. As I always say, like in the beginning, I don't want to say it was fun, but it was feel good.
Okay.
When we first started the charity, we would get 4 or 5 grant applications a year, and we were able to give grants to all of them.
Okay.
We now have 41 pending grant applications,
Wow.
and we can't possibly approve them all.
But in a way, that's kind of a heartening thing, in that there's 40 families out there willing to disrupt their lives to that extent.
It's very heartening, but it's
Yeah.
also heartbreaking for us to have
Sure.
to go through and decide who gets a grant and who doesn't. It almost becomes like Schindler's List.
Right,
You're
right.
almost becoming to the point. In fact, we have a full board of 11 members.
Okay.
And we have a board meeting every 2 months. And basically, the vast majority of them very much enjoy being part of the charity, very much enjoy being part of it, but they hated that part where
Sure.
we went through the applications and had to decide. So we actually had to create a subcommittee of 4 people
Right.
to come up with the recommendations of which applications would get grants and which wouldn't, unfortunately.
Well, I remember interviewing Robert Dono, who created the Gift of Life program with
Right.
Frank Rignanti, and I was like, boy, what a great thing to be able to do to save that kid's life. He says, you don't understand. He says, we have to interview 20, 30 families.
Right.
to pick one child, and you're
That's right.
basically consigning the other 19 families to a very unfortunate conclusion.
That's right.
And it is heartbreaking.
That's right. It is. Yeah.
But you do, obviously you want to focus on the success stories and you're raising the money. How much money do you need to raise per family? Is there a set number?
We don't fund the whole adoption.
Okay.
I mean, because if somebody can't afford to bring any money to the table, then they probably shouldn't be going through the adoption process. We're looking to be the difference.
Okay.
We're looking to be we need another $5,000 for travel costs to get to Ethiopia and back, and that's going to make the difference of the adoption and whatever. So, our average grants run somewhere between $2,000 and $5,000. Maybe a little more if they're adopting 2 kids. We have a lot of adoptive parents who are adopting 2 special needs children at the same time, often siblings.
Okay.
For example, possibly like 2 siblings who are both HIV positive from, like, say, Ghana or Ethiopia or something like that.
Wow.
Yeah.
And what's the biggest challenge for you in terms of fundraising?
It's just, we could give out the money, well, we do.
Right.
You see, the nice thing about the Rollstone Foundation, and when I do my sales pitch, I always tell people this: you're never going to find a better charity to give your money to, because we have no overhead.
Okay.
We have no salaries. Everybody who works at this charity is a volunteer.
Wow.
Okay. We have no rent. We have no insurance payments. We have literally no overhead. So literally, the only money that doesn't go back into grants is money that we spend for fundraising.
Right.
So, like, as one of our board members, Mark Murray, likes to say, the only other thing we spend the money on is postage and pasta.
Right,
Other than that, everything else goes to grants. So in fact, when I fill out grant applications to get money into Rollstone, there's usually this category of how much money is going into overhead, how much money is going into fundraising, how much money is going into the actual direct mission statement of. There isn't even a category for us, because we're giving them 90-something% of the money is going back, is going directly into the mission statement of the charity. So I would say, there are a lot of charities, and we know we're competing for the charitable dollar. We understand that. But I would say one of the nice things about the Rollstone Foundation is nobody's making money off of it.
Right.
Nobody is. Even our invitations for our yearly gala and other fundraising events, our printer donates that. We have a very good printer, PDQ Print and Mail, Scott Norton, who actually donates all the printing to what we do. So we don't even pay for printing.
I would imagine, though, one of the other rewards for contributing, the benefit that you get is the feel-good benefit, for lack of a better term. You're not only helping a child, but you're kind of thanking a family for stepping up and doing something that most people would shy away from.
You are, and look, let's face it, most of us aren't going to adopt a special needs child. Okay, I'm not. I'll be honest. I'll stand up and say, I'm not doing it. These are really, really special people who do this. And yes, I mean, recognizing them and recognizing that there are these kind of saints in the world is absolutely part of it. And every year when we have our gala, we have a family come.
Okay.
We call them Rollstone families. We have one Rollstone family come. This past June, we just had our gala, and the family was the Richards family from Ohio. They've adopted 4 children, one of which is cerebral palsy. The last one, which we helped them adopt, was 13 years old and HIV positive, which means she was getting close to aging out of the orphanages.
Wow.
And once they age out, their access to meds and things like that get to be harder and harder. So, it's very important to adopt the older children in that kind of situation, because they're getting close to aging out. So they adopted a 13-year-old girl who was HIV positive, but the child, and that's the one we helped them adopt. The child they adopted beforehand, however, was born with no limbs.
Wow.
They adopted a child with no limbs. And you have to meet this child. This child was at our fundraiser. Her name is Jovia, and she always has a smile on her face.
Wow.
And we had this fundraiser with 130 people there, and they're all meeting this child, and honestly, every one of them, they're all successful people who
Sure.
come to our fundraiser and whatever, and they see this child, and your immediate reaction has to be, I have no problems in
Yeah,
life.
yeah.
What problems do I have?
Well, let's use that as a segue into something I think you'd be really well versed in commenting on. A friend of mine has an expression: selfish benefits for selfless acts, meaning you do good, you benefit. You almost feel guilty about it,
Right.
but
That's
maybe people don't appreciate enough the selfish benefits that you get from doing selfless things. I know you and Pamela have been very involved in different charitable endeavors as long as I've known you. Can you just speak a little bit about why you do it and what are your selfish benefits for your selfless acts?
Well, I mean, I personally, I believe in living your life, giving back when you've been, the biblical edict, if you will, that to those that much has been given, much will be expected. And we've been given much. We've been very lucky. We've been very, very lucky in life. I believe in that idea that you need to give back. You need to share. You need to give back. And I think America needs to do more of that as a country, quite honestly. We're a very rich, fortunate country. And we have a very big sense of entitlement. And I think, we would feel better about ourselves as a country.
Well, that's an interesting point, right?
Like you just said, you were just saying about feeling better about the selfish aspects of feeling better about yourself as an individual. We would feel better about ourselves as a country. Imagine if we'd taken the money that we spent fighting these two wars in Iraq and Afghanistan and wiped out AIDS in Africa.
Right.
I mean, think of our prestige in the world and how good we would think about ourselves as a country if we had done that. Just my opinion.
No, and that's exactly the point I was hoping you would make. It's that, you're banging your head against the wall trying to get people to get involved in these things, and probably the most frustrating part is there's a real lack of appreciation for the fact that you benefit from it.
Right.
And yeah.
Yeah, you do. You feel like you're doing something useful. Let's face it, most of us go through our lives day in, day out, go to work, put in your 8 hours, come back from work, make dinner, and take the kids to soccer, do whatever it is you have to do and whatever else. And most of us can't look at our lives and say, what have I done to really make a difference? What have I done to really make the world a better place or make a difference in the world? And I think that's important. I think it's an important thing to be for people's own self-esteem, to be able to say, I've done something to make the world a better place.
It's exactly right, and it's a shame that more people don't see that, and it's a shame we don't do a better job as a society helping people understand that, because you're right. The more you get involved, the better you feel, and the more happy you are about your life.
Well, and again, I just think, we as a country, we had an economic meltdown in 2008.
Right.
And ever since then, the whole idea is to get back to where we were. And nobody's even stopping to think that maybe where we were wasn't a very healthy place.
Right.
This is a very heavy consumer-driven society. And there's nothing necessarily wrong with that, okay? But why, for example, can't charitable endeavors be considered gross national product?
That's interesting.
It certainly can be.
Sure.
There's no reason why it can't be.
Right.
But for some reason it's not in this country. So, we have the resources, but we tend not to spend them on things that I think would make us feel far better as a country if we did.
Well, it's interesting. George Harrison once said, fame and fortune is one thing, but your relationship with God is everything. And it's one thing for me to say it. I've never experienced the fame and fortune of a George Harrison, but when a guy like that tells you, it's all about your spiritual being, well, that says a lot.
Well, yeah, but we maybe haven't experienced fame, but honestly, we have experienced fortune. Mm-hmm. We're just such a rich country that we don't know that. To be in the, we had the whole 1% thing, the Occupy movement and the whole 1% thing. Okay, but that was all about America.
Right.
That was all about the 340 million Americans. Okay, to get in the 1% of the 340 million Americans, you have to make about $400,000 a year, or something like that. Okay, to be in the top 1% in the world, of the 7 million people in the world, you only have to make like $34,000 a year.
Wow.
Okay, we're all in the top. Not all, but
Right.
many of us are in the top 1%.
Right.
You know, so most of us have experienced fortune.
Yeah.
Get back to the George Harrison line. Maybe not fame,
Right.
but we are extraordinarily rich. Compared to 7 billion people in the world, half of them live on less than $2 a day.
Wow.
So we've already made the top cut. We've already
Right.
made the top 50%. Easily.
And, yeah, and the irony is, if you live in that lifestyle and you got more involved, you'd feel better, and you'd be a much more fulfilled life.
Oh yeah. But we are really the vast majority of the people who live on Long Island, who we know that we deal with, the professional people and whatever. You're in the top 1% of the
Right.
world. And that's a hard concept, I think, for people to get, because most people don't think they're rich. Most people think, "Oh, I'm just struggling to get by.
Right.
How can I be rich? Well, look at everything you've got."
Yeah.
Compared to somebody whose main worry in life is getting a good supply of clean drinking water.
Right. Yeah. And then you think you're struggling, and then you meet a family that's willing to adopt a special needs child.
Right.
And then you realize, wow, that's
Well, and see, the other thing is the thing that these families go through too. That they do adopt special needs children, and they do. It's a financial hardship. They borrow money. They go into
Wow.
debt.
Wow.
And the funny thing is that I've had people. Now my daughter. One of the ways we found out about the whole crisis, if you will, of the special needs children is that my daughter has adopted 9 children.
Wow.
My daughter has 12 children total. She gave birth to 3 the old-fashioned way, and
Right.
has adopted 9.
Wow, God bless.
Many of them special needs as well. And we went to Ethiopia in 2008, and that's when we had our eyes opened.
Wow.
That's when we visited an HIV-positive orphanage and actually worked there for a couple of weeks on a mission trip, and that's when we really had our eyes opened. But my daughter and other adoptive parents have gotten criticized about, like, well, you have to go into debt to adopt this child. Why are you doing that? And their answer is, look at all the things Americans go into debt for. Americans
Sure.
go into debt to buy a big screen TV.
Right.
Americans go into debt to buy a car. We're choosing to go into debt to save a child. Is that okay with you? So they really, Americans really have their priorities in, I don't want to say backwards, but our society teaches them that you never have enough.
right.
Because it's a consumer-driven society. I understand that. They're being
Sure.
screamed at in every commercial that they watch on TV or whatever, that you deserve a better car, you deserve a bigger house, you deserve a second house, you deserve all the luxuries you can get. That's the way our society works, because that's the way people sell things, and that's the way our economy works.
Right.
I get that, I understand it, but every now and then we've got to stop and take a look and say, boy, we really do have a lot, don't we?
We have a lot, and sometimes we think we own our possessions, but in reality, our possessions own us.
Often that is the case. There is a great story. I read this in the foreword of the book. The book is called Enough, and the title of the book came from the fact that the authors, Joseph Heller and Kurt Vonnegut, were at a party out in the Hamptons. And they're at one of these luxurious mega mansions out in the Hamptons. And to tweak Heller, Vonnegut says, "You realize that our host makes more in a day than you made in a lifetime off Catch 22.
Wow.
And Heller says to Vonnegut, he says, "Yes, but I have something he'll never have." And he says, "What's that?" He says, "Enough."
Wow.
Isn't that a good story?
That's great.
Isn't that a great story?
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's pretty cool. That's the website is the Rollstone Foundation.org.
Rollstone Foundation out. Yeah.
Okay, and it's a terrific story, Michael. I appreciate you sharing it with us today.
Well, thank you for giving me the chance to share it.
It's, like I said, the premise of the show is to really spotlight great people doing great things, and this is a perfect example of that. And we just want to do what we can to help inspire the rest of the island. So thank you very much. Thank Pam. I wish she could have joined us today. I know she had a prior commitment. This has been another episode of Mr. Long Island's Search for Truth and Beauty, and I thank you for joining us. My name is Michael Watt, a.k.a. Mr. Long Island, and we'll see you next week.